Hello and welcome to the Warframe tier list. Today we'll be going over Harrow, and first things first, let's go into the builds. So with Harrow I have three separate builds, all pretty similar. So the first one is a Pillage Shield Gate build, and as you can see, there's already a bunch of options. So Harrow does not need Arcane Energize, making it so you have a free Arcane to slot, and it's just simply whatever you want. Anything for fire rate, anything for more damage, Avenger if you can go combat discipline, all of these work very well on Harrow. Another thing that you may notice is I do not actually have Pillage subsumed, and this is because Harrow has a choice that he can make here. So with a Shield Gate build running Pillage on Harrow, you can either subsume off his Condemn, or you can subsume off Penance. The reason that you might want to get rid of Penance and keep Condemn is because with only Pillage as your only way to Shield Gate, it can be kind of annoying because Pillage is an ability that you have to double cast to be able to cast it the third time to reset your Shield Gate. The second cast has a delay before it restores your shield. If you keep Condemn, this gives you a second ability that you can use in conjunction with Pillage to keep your Shield Gate reset. Alternatively, you can try to only rely on Pillage and keep Penance for the weapon buff. I personally preferred getting rid of Penance and keeping Condemn and Pillage. With Condemn and Pillage, once you get used to it, you are virtually unkillable. Natural Talent is a must on Harrow because it speeds up the cast time of your 4, so less time casting, more time killing, and it also speeds up how fast you charge your 3. And again, just like before, less time casting, more time killing. As for the second build, it is a shield tank and health tank, thanks to Arcane Blessing, build relying on adaptation for DR. You may be wondering, how can Harrow survive with only adaptation if some other frames cannot? And the answer is pretty simple. So, first off, Harrow with his fourth ability is just flat out invincible for 1/3 of the mission. On top of that, Harrow has a very nifty passive, which doubles the max capacity of his overshields. This, and combined with Pillage, is absolutely insane. So every 2.6 seconds, whenever you get the audio cue on Pillage, you've recast it, fully armor stripping the entire room. Not only that, it also just instantly resets you to 3.9k overshield. 3.9k overshield being reset every 2.8 seconds, and on top of having 1800 some health, is very, very strong. Now, as for the third build, it is a Terrify build. So I personally really did not like the Terrify build. I can't explain why, I just felt extremely squishy. The only upside to the Terrify build over a Pillage build is it allows you to keep your Penance, as Terrify can be cast whenever, so there's really no debate whether you should get rid of his Penance or his Condemn. You should just always get rid of Condemn with Terrify. The problem, like I said, I just felt extremely squishy, and I was occasionally running out of energy, even though his 3 should theoretically give you infinite energy. If you ever let this ability drop, even for like 2 seconds, you will quickly find yourself out of energy. Also, with the Eximus's just ignoring the CC that Terrify provides, it was just iffy. On top of that, the main benefit of going Terrify is that it lets you keep Penance, like I mentioned earlier. But without Condemn or Pillage to give you high overshield, Penance is extremely annoying to maintain, so I really didn't like this build. My personal favorite was surprisingly the Shield and Health Tank build, even though I typically prefer Shield Gate builds. As for the rest of the kit, I opted for an Gas Archoplasmor. Was it optimal? No, but it was fun, and it did not impact my KPM in the slightest. Other alternatives are any weapons that can either freely headshot or really want flat crit chance, which Harrow offers with his 4, such as the Bubonico. I tested the Bubonico a few times, and it worked extremely well using a crit alt-fire build. I'm not the most experienced with this weapon. This was just something I threw together while testing, and it worked very, very well. A Nadaruk would also work, as it's something that wants crits, and it's something that can easily headshot. As for your secondary weapon, it is of course the nucor. Why? Well, because again, you can just give it free crit chance, and it's something that can easily headshot. Running prime target cracker on the nucor pushes it to a 10.5x crit multiplier, making this thing absolutely delete enemies. Another benefit is Harrow only has to run one or no auger mods, meaning that you can always run prime target cracker on your nucor. As for the melee, it's whatever you want. You can either use the glaive because it's overpowered, or just any other thing that you personally like. Kratos for movement speed, Enidem for movement speed, or whatever else you prefer. Focus School is of course Madurai for the 50% casting speed from power transfer for the reasons I mentioned earlier, and the 40% ability strength. Your companion is of course a standard Panzer with the synth mods equipped. Now moving on to the ranking portions of the video, we will be discussing Harrow in relation to 4 separate topics. Firstly, his KPM, secondly, his survivability, thirdly, his viability, and finally, how fun he is to play. All of this data is sampled from a 1-hour solo Steel Path mot run with no specters and no on-call. Now moving on to the first topic, his KPM, and like most other Warframes in the game, Harrow is just a standard gun frame. However, he has the benefit of being able to freely run Pillage with Blind Rage, as he has Infinite Sustain from his 3, and he also has a crit buff that is up for 66% of the mission. You can also choose to run the augment to extend the duration of the crit chance on his 4 forever. However, that is a debatable augment to use, as you then lose the invincibility for 33% of the mission. I personally think that it is a trade-off that isn't worth it, as you're also losing a mod slot, but it is worth mentioning. That being said, because of him just being a standard gun frame, but having multiple buffs to his weapons, such as fully armor stripping enemies with ease, having decent survivability so he can keep killing enemies efficiently, and also the crit from his 4, this leads him to a very high KPM for a gun frame, leading his KPM ranking to an A+. Now, moving on to the second topic, his survivability, and Harrow is pretty tanky, honestly. So, like I mentioned earlier, he is one of the few frames that can get away with just being a shield tank build, even without DR, and that is because of his doubled overshield, and him being invincible for 30% of the mission, on top of, again, him being able to freely cast Pillage and not have to worry about sustain. And even if you go a shield gate build, he is very tanky if you go Pillage plus Condemn, because now you have 2 separate things that shield gate you multiple times, again leading to very high survivability. With all of that being said, I believe that Harrow sits firmly at an A+ for survivability as well. Now moving on to Harrow's viability, and Harrow is pretty versatile. He doesn't really excel anywhere, but he is definitely above average in pretty much every aspect of the game. He is a very good support player that gives his team infinite energy, he makes them invincible, and buffs their guns. On top of this, Harrow is one of the best frames to use Thermal Sunder with, as he gets energy back on kill, meaning that you can run super high strength and high range and still sustain it on Harrow. This means that he's one of the better base star chart nukers, and he's also a solid frame for Sanctuary Onslaught. Outside of this though, he really isn't amazing anywhere, but again, he's not bad either, he's just above average, leading to a B+ rank for his viability. Now, moving to the final topic, how fun is Harrow to play? And of course this is always subjective, but I find Harrow to be very fun for a gun frame. The reason for this is because, well, his 2 and his 4 Both make weapons that otherwise aren't very viable or are just clunky to either A, be viable, or B, not be clunky, such as the Archoplasmor. It fixes its problems of having slow fire rate and a slow reload. Now, if you are running a build where you can keep as 2, it fixes both of those problems. Not to mention, just being able to red crit with weapons that have no business red critting is also always just fun. So, because of all that, I have to give him an A rank for his fun, which, in my opinion, is very high for a gun frame. In conclusion, Harrow is an A tier Warframe who is solid all around, is a good support player, and has a few niche uses.